What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Talking to the Law Benfica podcast. Another night, another podcast. My name is Alfredo. I'm here with Cristiano Oliveira.
What's going on, chaps?
Also in the Great White North, we got Steve Santos.
It's definitely white, that's for sure.
And we got our stats guy, Dave de Oliveira. What's going on, Dave?
How's it going tonight, boys?
Good. All right, on tonight's podcast number 264, even though the title says 263. If you're watching this live on YouTube, we will look back at the Estoril game. We'll also look ahead to tomorrow's game as we record this on Tuesday night. Tomorrow's Taça de Portugal game against Rio Ave up in Estádio do Mar. Right? Did I get that right,
Estádio do Mar, outra vez. Estádio do Rio Ave, also known as Estádio dos Arcos or something.
Estádio dos Arcos. I always get that wrong. I don't know why. That's why I asked you to correct
Estádio do Mar. Where's Estádio do Mar?
Leixões. And we'll also look ahead to Tondela, which comes up this weekend. So without further ado, let's get right into the Estoril game. I'll give you the lineup. Varela was in goal. Almeida, Luizão, Jardel, and Grimaldo across the back. Feza, Pizzi, and Krovinovic in the midfield triangle. On the wing, Salvio on the right, Servi on the left. And up front by himself, by his lonesome. Tô ficando sozinho aí em cima. Jonas.
Yeah, but more high pitch, dude. More high pitch.
Tô ficando sozinho.
Mas tá melhor,
Sozinho aí em cima. Não vem Pizzi, não vem Krovinovic, eu fico sozinho. Anyway.
Tá legal, tá legal.
Tá legal. All right, let's I'm going to spit out a couple things. Third consecutive 11 for the league by Rui Costa.
Rui Costa. Please don't ever say that again.
Rui Vitória.
Yeah, that's much better.
By Rui Vitória. Also, Pizzi has been used in every single game for Benfica. Steve, one thing before we get into the game, and I guess it kind of be a little bridge to get into the game, is something that I've said here time and time again with this change to the 4-3-3 is my biggest thing to me is to see some kind of progression in this system, especially with the three guys in the middle, right? Because we exchanged a couple texts and you said everything is the same, basically, with the exception of the three guys in the middle. So I'm not seeing any progression. As a matter of fact, there's a little bit of stagnation, if you will, or it's not moving forward. Looking with your eyes at this midfield trio, what are you seeing? What are some of the downfalls, some of the shortcomings, some of the things that we're doing well, if we're doing anything well? But what are you seeing with this midfield trio?
I'm seeing the biggest thing for me is I don't think the roles between Pizzi and Krovinovic are defined, or whether they know what they're supposed to be doing in relation to one another. For me, it just seems like they split the pitch in half, and one kind of tries to stay to one side, one kind of tries to stay to the other side, but it doesn't necessarily always work out that way. You will see in when we were in organized attack, they're kind of in the same line, so they're not making themselves a passing option or different passing options for whoever has the ball. Defensively, there's times where we look very suspect between the two of them. Neither of them seem to be doing their job, whether that's down to lack of rigor, like rigorous training and showing what they need to do in each situation, where when the ball is here, what your reference point is, where you're supposed to be, etc., etc. Where is it different for Pizzi? Where is it different for Krovinovic? We don't know. That's all hearsay. But there's definitely there's definitely something missing when it comes to defending with this three-man midfield, because neither of them seem to be covering the right spaces when we're defending. Pluses, Krovinovic is right now probably one of the more important players of the side. I don't know if I want to say most important, but he's the one that has that creative spark that we've seemed to be missing for most of the season up until he showed up. Other bit I like is, yes, because Face is a little bit limited and our center backs are a little bit limited in their build-up play. It lets one of those guys go pick up the ball a little bit deeper and the other one stay within the other team's core. But the rest of the team is still playing the exact same roles they are. I mean, even Jonas playing up front on his own, he's still maybe there's one thing that I think he's doing less of, and that's because of the 4-3-3 is he's not coming as deep to get the ball. When Pizzi was playing really badly and nothing was working, Jonas was coming right next to Fesa or even the center backs to grab the ball, and that's not happening anymore, which is a good thing. But previously, when the team was functioning slightly better, I don't see much of a difference in the role that Jonas is playing. I don't see a difference in the role that anyone's playing, except for even Pizzi. Pizzi's still trying to do the exact same things and not doing the same things. I mean, actually, he's probably defended better than he is right now, but it's still a mishmash, I think. There's still not that fluidness that you would expect those three guys to move as a unit. It's not there. And will we see it or not? I don't know. There's a couple things on the grapevine which leads me to believe maybe PT is going to be starting to sit a little bit more, but we'll speak about that soon, I'm sure.
Yeah. The one thing that I wanted to say in addition to what you said is when you mentioned that Jonas is not coming as deep, I would love to see a stat that tells us how many touches Jonas had in a 4-4-2 versus the 4-3-3. I know that's very, very in depth, but that would kind of formulate a question for me, and I'll ask you this, Cristiano. Do you think that that Jonas is getting more touches because he's not coming as deep, and do you think that influences the game?
It works hand in hand. I think him playing alone up top, he's also easy to man mark. He's going to have two center backs on him at all times, supposed to having someone there to play off of. If you guys go back a couple of weeks now, I told you, to me, this 4-3-3 with the current players on the roster wasn't going to work. It works when Benfica has possession against the smaller teams. This weekend, it didn't particularly work that well. Both of those guys, Krovinovic and Pizzi, they play the same style. They both like to have the ball at their feet, and they kind of like occupy each other's spaces at times. And, you know, I just don't think they've gotten in sync yet. And the other thing is this, man. Krovinovic has been good, okay? He's played well. You know, he's just arrived at Benfica over the summer, missed a couple of weeks, whatever it was, because of injury at first, appendix or something he had at the beginning of the season. Something, yeah,
myalgia or something.
Something,
like
yeah, he had a injury.
Hernia.
Appendix hernia, same.
No,
it's
appendix
not.
hernia.
I thought it was the
It's
same
quite
thing.
different. Appendix is Ruben Diaz.
Hernia.
No, I thought it was the same thing. Appendix and
hernia.
hernia, same thing. But whatever. At the end of the day, he was injured at the beginning of the season. And look, he's been good considering he just came in. But sometimes people make it sound like this guy's been lights out. Like he was Pizzi last year when Pizzi was at the top of his game, when we all sat here and I had to eat crow and say Pizzi was, you know, team's most important player for the season, right alongside Nelson Smith. I don't think he's even reached that level yet, Krovinovic. He's been good, but let's not make him out to be like a guy that has to be a starter. He's the first name you put on the on starting 11 sheet.
To me, he's important because the one thing that that Krovinovic is currently doing that Pizzi's not doing is that is touch. When he gets the ball, he always tries to go positive, right? So rather than passing the ball back to the same guy that got the ball, he tries to turn and go forward. And I think that that's one thing that Pizzi's having a lot of problems doing currently. And I think that when Pizzi takes one touch too many, as we saw this past weekend, he's giving up the ball. He's got guys on him, and he hasn't figured that out, that guys are going to be on him. So he's got to get rid of the ball and make it simple.
I still think both guys would be better suited with another guy next to him who's more of a box-to-box, like I've been preaching about for the longest time now, rather than another guy that's very similar in characteristics. And I think, again, those two get in each other's ways. Jonas is not getting that involved in the game, doesn't have the ball at his feet as much as we would like for him to have, because he's allowed to be, you know, a lot easier to man mark him. I hope, like, in a way that whether it's Seferovic or even Jimenez, I would like to see another guy up top in front of Jonas that he could play off of, and maybe, you know, desmarcar, get into an open lane, play off of those guys. I think it'd be a lot easier for him to get involved in a game that way.
Yeah, and Steve, one of the arguments for the 4-3-3 was that with the 4-3-3, we were going to protect the back line a little bit more. But things that we've seen, the fact that both Krovinovic and Pizzi are lacking sometimes in their defensive positioning when it comes to defensive transition, that really doesn't inspire or confidence or prove that fact that the team, just because they're playing a 4-3-3, they're going to protect the back line.
No, just because you add an extra guy in the middle doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to protect the back line better if he doesn't know where to position himself and where to place cover when, let's say, Fesa moves over and pushes out to the wing because he needs to cover for Almeida, who's about to get beat or whatever. Then Pizzi or Krovinovic need to know to get closer to where Fesa is and block the passing lane across the top of the box. But if they're not doing that, then you're not gaining anything. Just because in numbers we have a third guy in the midfield doesn't mean that you're magically going to protect the defense better. Protecting the defense comes with work, both from the coaching staff and explaining on how and when to cover. And at this point, I'll have to say Pizzi and Krovinovic, because they, to an extent, are starting to look a little bit lazy on the defensive transitions and on when they are forced to cover, basically, for Fesa when he steps out.
Look, when they played with Felipe Augusto in the midfield, when they played with him in the midfield, that could have been a better case for protecting the back line. But you can't tell me you're protecting the back four with Pizzi and Krovinovic in the lineup.
No. And I think that instinctive, and maybe Pizzi has more that instinct than Krovinovic has, because Krovinovic has always been a center attacking midfield. Pizzi, from the past and from what he's had to do in the past couple seasons, he should know more or less where he needs to be. And I remember an interview with Renato Sanches where Renato Sanches said that Pizzi doesn't like running.
Yeah, I remember that. When he said he was lucky that Fesa was behind him to do all the running for him. I remember that. That was early Bayern transfer days.
So at this point, the 4-3-3, it is what it is. As Steve mentioned, the roles need to be better defined. What you need to do needs to be explained better, needs to be worked out, needs to be rehearsed. And right now, there's a huge deficiency. But the other thing is that you're playing against the last place team in the Liga NOS, and you're going with a 4-3-3 with the one forward. Cristiano, are you a supporter of when we play for the most teams in the Liga NOS that we should play with two guys up front?
We've been complaining about this here on the pod for a while. I want Benfica to go in and put their foot on their throat and stomp on them and go out there guns blazing. We didn't see that again this weekend. We went against a team, let's not forget, they had gone, 12 hours, whatever it was, without a goal?
Yeah, they hadn't scored in 8 games.
12 hours without a goal. And they come to Stade de Luz, and they score. And they didn't look that bad, throughout most of the game. I know Benfica had their chances, but it wasn't one of these dominant performances that we expect from a Benfica at home against the last place team. A Benfica that had their pride shattered. You'd expect Benfica to come home and really put in the work and come out slamming, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If you watch the game, Estoril are super naive. They're quite bad, to be absolutely honest.
Defensively, they're awful.
And I think that might be... Things became easy. If you watch the game, constantly we were able to attack their back line, the depth, because they're playing stupid high and not pressing. So the ball over the top was always on. Massive spaces between the center backs and the full backs. So the ball along the ground was always on. So basically, immediately once a guy got the ball controlled in the midfield, he looked up, that pass was on, he was going to play it. And things just became easy. And we were constantly being able to do that. Does that maybe alter the way you think and you lose a little bit of focus? And maybe at that point you start to be a little bit lazy on defense, maybe a little bit lazy with your passing, and you're having a few more technical errors just because things seem easier. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
regardless, it's not a good excuse.
But it's very typical of this Benfica team to also go up and then just take the foot off the accelerator, and that's it. And then you let these little teams get back. And look, this is a repetitive conversation that we've had here that Benfica lacks that killer instinct that Cristiano's talking about.
Don't know what it was. We started the game it wasn't our best performances. I don't know if it was because we were nervous, first game back at home after the disastrous performance. I don't know what it was, okay? But this team was not prepared to start this game. We got an early goal, which kind of eased things a little bit. I'm not sure about that. It became too easy and the team got lackadaisical. I just think that Benfica is struggling to maintain that level of play. They have spurts where everything seems to be hitting on all cylinders, and they have spurts where they can't, complete 3 passes in a row. The other thing, once again, we go into another game at halftime that Benfica should be controlling rather easy. Come back to second half, where the other team makes adjustments, and they're by far the better team in the early stage of the second half. And then again, we got another early goal in the second half, which kind of eased things once again. But it just goes back to show you, and I've been complaining about this. Last year with this Estoril team, with Pedro Manuel, I was complaining game after game that Benfica was going into the half. Rio Ave was doing God knows what, and the other teams were making adjustments. And in the second half, it's a totally different game. We got a little lucky with the goal from Krovinovic to kind of like put it out of reach, but then they scored a goal with Kleberson with a hand, and which looked like it should have been Kleberson, whatever his name is. That, was with the handball and the penalty shouts and this shouts and whatever. But things could have gotten a lot interesting if Krovinovic doesn't score that goal. Right? We scored a goal in the second half, correct?
59th minute, the third goal.
Early, so 15 minutes. But still, that game would have been a lot closer and a lot tighter than what it turned out to be, guys.
Yeah.
And again, it all has to do with the other coach making adjustments.
Yeah, I agree. And to put a stone on top of the game, really, the result was really the best thing out of this game. I wasn't particularly impressed with Benfica. There were moments where fast combinations and quick movement by our players were able to get behind the defense, were able to open up spaces, but nothing consolidated to the point where you see a good moment, good 15, 20 minutes of this going on. There were spurts. A lot of it has to do with some of the individual quality of some of the players, but other than that, not an impressive game by Benfica at all. I know that you don't get points for style, but nonetheless, it is a team that doesn't inspire confidence with the way that they're playing. Yes, they're scoring goals, but this is the last place team that we're playing. And even so, if you look at the stats, if you look at the stat sheets and you take away the score and you go look at the stat sheets and you see if you could guess what the score was without knowing the score. More opportunities by Estoril in the box, more shots by Estoril, more corner kicks by Estoril. Benfica had most of the possession, but when you look at attacking stats, Estoril was right there.
Against the last place team and a team that hasn't scored in 12 hours. Keep going. I just want to throw that in there. Keep going.
No. So 3-1, we keep on the hunt. We keep on the chase. And like I said, the result was really the best thing. Now, Benfica comes up against Rio Ave for the Taça de Portugal this coming Wednesday at Estádio dos Arcos. And Steve, I had written here Estádio dos Arcos. I don't know what why I didn't. I said Estádio do Mar. Anyway, this Wednesday, Rio Ave is currently 7th, 4 wins, 1 tie, 3 losses. They beat Braga and São Joanense in the previous couple rounds of the Portuguese Cup. They have already tied Benfica this year at Estádio dos Arcos 1-1. Jonas scored the goal, and Lisandro scored another goal, except on our own goal. Rafa Eliseu were left out, and Felipe Augusto is back, which means Keaton Parks is not getting a call. So anyway, let me go ahead, Cristiano.
I apologize for this, but going back to the Estoril game, I liked that kid, Lucas Evangelista. He's on loan from some Italian club.
Udinese.
I like them. Nice left foot, quality player. And I was thinking about this throughout Saturday's game, and I was thinking that wouldn't be a bad replacement for another guy you just mentioned, Felipe Augusto. Just saying, another lefty.
He's a winger.
The thing is,
not a winger. He plays in the middle.
You sure?
He plays in the middle. Yeah. Felipe Augusto with Rio Ave looked similar to this guy. That's the only thing that sometimes is misleading.
So last 10 against Rio Ave, and this is courtesy of Dave, which is having problems with the internet in Canada. What else is new? Last 10 against Rio Ave, 7 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. Last 5 matches in Vila do Conde, 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. So for me, very difficult game for Benfica. Steve, I know that we've seen Rio Ave at quite a good level. They're a team that likes to have possession. They're a team that likes to pass the ball around. And we've seen very good things. Geraldo is on this team. That other dude that I was telling you before, the 30-year-old Ribeiro. I don't know if Yuri Ribeiro, which is on loan for Benfica, is going to be able to play in league. And
he should play. It only comes into play in league league matches, not in like Taça games.
League matches, and I think the League Cup, because that's something that was done by the league.
I'm not. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's just a campeonato. I think they could play in all the other competitions, which is the Taça CTT and the Taça Portugal.
Right. So anyway, Steve, what are you thinking for this game, man?
Well, in Rio Ave, you have a team that's very well drilled on organized attack. I mean, this team comes out of the back, using the goalkeeper, spreading the center backs really wide.
Yeah, maybe the snow is having an effect on the internet up there.
Connecting sectors.
Just wait, and then we'll edit it after.
Steve just went into slow motion.
If the person that will draw, to do that, they're gonna be effective. Are we frozen?
This is what happens when you are.
You can start that all over again, Steve.
Yeah.
We'll just edit it later.
Start at the points where you were saying.
Let's make sure his internet's up first.
Oh, there he goes.
It's not even up. It's gone.
Anyway, so as Steve has mentioned, Rio Ave is a team that's very well organized, especially going forward. They're a team that likes to hold the ball. They're very well drilled on support for always providing a passing lane for the players that has the ball, and they move from sector to sector on the field in possession. Now, there's a couple of guys there, as I mentioned. Geraldo is one of them. Ribeiro is the other one. And who's their forward? Is it the Paciencia kid?
They have Nuno Santos, a former Benfica kid, who's included in the Ederson trade to them. Yazal, Gabrielzinho, Thomas Camaranoso, Helder Guedes, Ruben Ribeiro, and Oscar Barreto. Those are the strikers on their roster.
Yeah, Guedes, I think, is the dude that plays most of the time.
They do have a Pele, so things should get interesting.
Pele,
former Benfica.
That's right. So a very difficult game for Benfica.
Benfica dropped points there already.
Yeah,
and the first thing. Oh, you did. I was reading about the Yankees.
1-1. Yeah,
they dropped points there already. And look, this is like you were saying, very well organized team. Depending on who Benfica is going to run out there tomorrow, things will get interesting.
What do you expect? What are you expecting? You expect our strongest 11 because this is a competition that.
I mean, at this point, right now, you're sitting third, right?
Yeah.
With two teams, depending. And again, I don't want to hear about what's going to happen in the $20 million that we're going to invest in January. Okay. Right now, exactly. So right now, as things stand, we're in third place with two very formidable opponents ahead of us. Two teams that, just like we could reinforce strengthen our squad in January, they could do it as well.
Agreed.
Right? So the pressure's on you that if, God forbid, you don't win the Penta, you come in second or third, you need something to show for this disastrous year. So Portugal's got to be it, full squad.
Well, I think that the jury's still out on whether it's going to be disastrous or not.
But you don't know, so why?
We don't.
So you can't take any chances,
right?
Because at the end of the day, this might be the only banner you're going to be holding up at the end of the year. So you can't run the risk of not even progressing in this tournament, in this whatever the hell you want to call it, right? And then estás ali agarrado ao pau, fim do ano.
Yeah, Steve, I anticipate Vitória to play his strongest 11 in this game.
Well, his favorite 11 or his strongest 11 is the better question. Yeah.
What he thinks it's the strongest, what he feels is the best.
The guys who have started the past few games, I would assume, is going to be the lineup for this match as well.
Yeah, aside from maybe a change a
with
keeper.
The exception with Villar in.
You guys think Villar is going to play?
He has to. Possible. He has to, Steve. Look, Varela's played well. But again, he looked very shaky again this weekend. He had a couple of balls. He has a problem catching the ball. And it's the thing we've talked.
He's got little hands.
I don't care what it is. Well, then that's the problem. You can't be the starting goalkeeper at Benfica.
Maybe he's got slippery gloves.
He looks good in certain moments, and he looks very suspect in others. And when you're Sport Lisboa Benfica, you can't have a suspect goalkeeper. Starts from the back. You need a goalie that gives you assurances. And whether it's Varela or Svilar, we could tell already from Varela from the mishaps, and I know he's turned it around, but this weekend, fumbled a couple opportunities again. We need to figure out if Svilar is that guy, or it's the new kid that's coming in January, or it's the other 53 goalkeepers we'll be linked with between now and next July. But one of them has to grab the opportunity by, grab the bull by the horns. And I think right now I'm a little bit more comfortable from what I've seen from Svilar than from what I've seen with Varela. Varela, I think he has a problem holding on to the ball. And you can't have that. I can't have that on my team, Steve.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Steve, but you were in the middle of something very informative, I'm sure. And
my internet went to hell as usual.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
Yeah, Odysseus Vlachodimos is the guy that supposedly we signed. Thanks, Dave. In January. So, tough game for Benfica against Rio Ave.
I still didn't get Steve's thoughts on this game.
Well, he was going to tell you.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead, Steve. Give us the footnotes, or no, give us the what do you call it? Cliff notes. Give us the cliff notes.
Cole's notes. Rio Ave is going to play their game, or at least attempt to play their game. We need to try to impose our game, but are we good enough to do so is the other question. Also, will we be able, or will it look bad if we allow Rio Ave to have the ball a little bit and wait for their errors and attempt to work off of that? Those are all question marks. Here's something that we definitely have to do. If we could figure out the proper way to press these guys, will be huge, because that's the way they like to play. That's the way they connect football. If we sit back, I don't think the crowd will take it well. I don't think Benfica fans will take that well if we sit back and let them have the ball. So we have to. My thing is, we have to figure out how to press them and effectively. Because if we do a bad job of it, they're going to play through us like butter, and it's going to be difficult.
The fact that this is even a question, that this is even a thought.
We're having this conversation about Rio Ave.
We're talking about Benfica, for Christ's sake.
I mean,
and that's the problem.
We're talking.
And that's the problem. You're going against a Rio Ave team that's very well drilled and plays a good brand of football, because they play exactly the way their coach intends them to play. They have a very clear identity and idea of what they want to do, against a team like us who is very wishy-washy, let's say. Yeah. I think I've used that again. And the ideas are not clear. Yeah. And what we want to do with the ball is not clear. How we want to defend is not clear. So if it's a game that could be very equal, even though we have much better players because of this.
Yeah. Steve, it's like we're having this conversation. It's like we're previewing a game against Sporting, against Sport. You said we got to figure out a way to press them.
No. It's not. It's worse than that. It's like we're previewing a Tondela game. We're doing a Tondela podcast. That's what it feels like.
Versus Benfica.
Yeah, no. This is a Tondela. We're doing They're doing a Benfica podcast. We're doing a Tondela podcast, and to come up with a way that Tondela is not going to go into Rio Ave and losing. That's what we're doing here.
Okay.
We're talking about freaking Benfica.
Okay.
No, Steve, not you. No, Steve, I'm not getting on you.
No.
It's the sad reality of how things have gone, that we got to stoop to this level.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about Benfica in ways to come up and set up in tactics in ways that what's his name? Babu, what's the former? Mane was the former guy, the coach of Tondela. He played at Benfica. Pepa. Whatever. We're talking about ways that Pepa walks into the locker room. This is what we're talking about. Implementing the same system. Come on, we're Benfica.
No, yeah. No,
it's so sad that we stoop down to this level.
And Steve, you're absolutely right with what you said.
Yeah. And Steve,
if we press Rio Ave the way we pressed Estoril, we're done. They'll play right through us. Every time.
But what you said is a conversation for a different setting. all
keep us
together.
getting
It
us
shouldn't be Benfica playing Rio Ave. Rio Ave is 7th in the league, bro.
It's the reality of what's going
Look,
on.
we know that they have quality. We're not taking
No,
anything.
you're 100% correct,
anything
Steve.
aside from
yeah,
Portugal.
dude, it's so sad that the things have stooped this low, and that we have to be cautious. And now we're anticipating, going into Rio Ave and being very careful with the way we press, because we could be picked apart by freaking Rio Ave. Like, that's how bad things have gone, and everyone's just content with it because we're 3 points behind.
Yeah. Let's turn our attention now to Tondela, since you mentioned Tondela, and Tondela comes up this weekend, Sunday, 8:15 local. Tondela is currently 12th place, 15 points from 4 wins, 3 ties, and 7 losses. At home, 2 wins, 1 tie, and 4 losses. They are the second worst defense at home. So Benfica will have to play Tondela this coming weekend, and they've came up with some stats here. Last 4 matches against Tondela since Tondela came back to the first division: 4 wins, 0 draws, and 0 losses. The two matches in Tondela, Benfica won 2-0 and 4-0 on the 2 matches that we played up there. Tondela is 12th place, another team in the bottom of the table. Again, we have to take these games serious, and it's these games against these teams where you start building that streak and you start finding that consistency, which is something that we've had. I think that we're on a 7-game win streak at Stade de Luz. I don't know. Anyway, but we need to win these games against these little teams, especially when you travel up north. You play on smaller pitches, and Cristiano's been there. He knows that pitch inside out, and it's going to be a tough game. Tondela.
About Tondela, this is
after
all that.
I don't think it'll be a tough game.
You don't think it'll be a tough game?
Tondela are doing well considering last season,
what they have to play with.
What they went down to the very last game of the season. They needed to squeak out a win in order to stay up in the second division and in the first division. They're doing well. They're safe right now. They're 7 points from relegation. Had an impressive victory last week at Aves, Sportivo de Aves, 1-0. That being said, it's still a game that Benfica should absolutely handle and should absolutely win. But again, this is the same thing that I say week in, week out, with the exception of Porto, Braga, Sporting, and maybe Guimarães, even though we seem to have been dominating Guimarães for years now. But every other game in the Portuguese league, we should win anyway. And somehow we make it interesting and we make things difficult. And then we come here on every Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it is, and we talk about the difficulties that Benfica had against these teams that they have no business even being in the same field with Benfica.
Yeah.
Steve?
What they do.
Yeah,
right
exactly. All right, so Benfica needs to get a win. I mean, there's no other. Steve, fala lá, então.
No, there was
That's
not
it.
much
I think
else
we
to
already
add
said
to
everything.
Yeah.
Before we finish off, a few news items that came out, and as the transfer window approaches, the media or the newspapers have already started throwing some names and some guys that are going out, some guys that may be coming in. But that's what sells papers. Look, whatever we're gonna say here, it's it's like Rui Vitória says, "Vale o que vale." Take it with a grain of salt. As Pete Domican says, I won't. It's not confirmed until I see him holding a Benfica shirt, and I think that I subscribe to that. So one of the news items was that Benfica had told Eliseu to look for somebody in this for a club to sign in this winter window. Apparently no good, non conta para Rui Vitória. So that's what it is. Dave, you want to just run us through what Eliseu has done so far this year, how much he's played?
Yeah, for sure. So let's hope my internet doesn't cut out. But he's gotten 6 starts this year for us. 1 in the in the league, 1 in Champions League, and 1 in Taça, the league, I believe. We haven't really relied upon him too much this year with just got when Grimaldo's not healthy. So knock on wood. If we want to ship him out, we got to rely more on Grimaldo.
Yeah. Cristiano, what's your take on this? I know that you got a little bit of a soft spot for Eliseu. But for me, I thought that Eliseu has been terrible all season this year. I don't think that he's at the level of what we would need for a left back. And I know I might be a little bit demanding, and considering what's been seen at right back. But I just thought that Eliseu is past his prime, obviously, and he's expired for me. What's your thought, Grimaldo, with the problems that he's had with injuries, and now if this is true, because this is unconfirmed, that Benfica is asking Eliseu to find a club in the winter transfer, do you think that there's a kid on the B team? What is it, Pedro Amaral? Steve, is it on the B team?
Yeah, it has to be. At this point,
For
it has
left
to
back, yeah, I believe that's him.
At this point, it has to be someone from within, because they're not going to go out and spend money when they have someone who is undisputedly the starter at left back in a Grimaldo. His only concern is whether he's going to be healthy week in, week out. That being said, it's a huge risk, but I think right now at this point, being that he's 34, whatever he is now, being that he hasn't done particularly much all season, I think it suits Benfica and it suits everyone that he goes on and he moves along. And if he wants to continue his playing career elsewhere, go ahead, find a club, because you're no longer a part of our plans. And I look, I've liked Eliseu a little bit more than some of us here on the podcast, and I've defended him at times. But look, he's done all that he was able to do for this club. At this point, I don't think he adds anything. And so I'm totally 100% okay with him moving on.
I'm okay with him moving on, but this could have been done in September.
I agree.
Well, they messed up, Steve.
August.
They should have never sold Marçal. That would have been the perfect guy to team
We're still
up.
talking about that guy 2 years later, but yeah, it's not that I disagree with you, but it's another mishandled situation if he's actually the answer to the second backup.
It's okay if they sold Marçal and made good money out of it. I understand that the guy obviously did well and we should have brought him back, but obviously there's a reason why we send him out.
Well, he also would probably expect to pay more, Marçal. That's
right. We sent him out because he made $4 million, €4 million.
Right. We send him out obviously to put these guys on the window. So the end result is that we want to sell him for a good profit.
You sold him because he was bringing you back €4 million. You had a guy who's without a doubt a starter in a Grimaldo, and you thought you had a suitable backup, a reliable backup in what's his name, Eliseu. That's the only reason why they sold him, because they have a bigger margin to make off of a Grimaldo than they would have keeping.
I don't think that Hermes was ever a choice. But my biggest thing is that why did we let Yuri Ribeiro go? We should have let Eliseu go and kept Yuri Ribeiro.
But here's the thing: you stunt his growth. Well, with Grimaldo, that I agree with you, because with Grimaldo, you have 8 starts for Grimaldo and 6 for Eliseu. If it was 8 starts for Grimaldo and 6 for Yuri Ribeiro, that's not bad. If Dave could get before the end of the podcast, how many games has Yuri Ribeiro played for Rio Ave? Because that'd be interesting. If he's played more than 6 starts, then that's where it works out. Because when you have Grimaldo, who's guaranteed to miss matches at this rate, because he obviously has injury issues.
He's played 11 games in total, Steve.
Yuri?
Well, that's with the Euronational, but he's played 8 games for
in the league.
No, 8 games. One for the Taça and 7 for the league.
So there you go. I mean, you could have held on to him instead of Eliseu. Yep. He's getting basically the same amount of football out there. He could have been under your wing.
Yeah,
they brought back Eliseu. Go back to last season after they won the the Taça Portugal against Guimarães at the Estádio Nacional. And if you guys recall, and he took the time to go and take pictures. And I'm telling you, they brought him back because of that, because I think that set a good omen. I think I'm telling you.
What? And the scooter?
No, that was the Taça. No, that was the Campeonato. I'm talking about after they won against Guimarães. And then he took the time. He was taking pictures with all the special needs people. I'm telling you, he was more of an ambassador. It was like a thank you for being a professional. That's why they brought him back. And I told you right then and there, Alfredo, you remember. They're going to bring him back because of it. It was 2 hours after the game, and he's taking pictures with everybody. We're all, the lesser privileged people. Like, it was just, it was like he was savoring the moment because he himself thought that there was a possibility he wasn't going to be brought back. And I think he took that time to cherish the moment and savor it and, take it all in. And Benfica appreciated that. And they say, this guy's been on the squad. Every single year he's been on, we've been champions. He's a model citizen. Unlike, some of the rumors prior to him joining Benfica was that he was a knucklehead. And some might still say he's a knucklehead because, he's still never been in the best of shape. But I think Benfica took all that into consideration. They said, look, we got a kid in Grimaldo that if healthy, he's going to get the majority of the playing time. We're going to sell Marçal for $4 million, pocket $4 million. Yuri, go get some playing time, and we could still play this guy for another season, at worst in Eliseu. And I just think that Eliseu hasn't been anywhere near what anyone expected him to be so far this season, and that's why the Champions League was out the window. They needed experience. Right now, at this point, you're playing the Taça Portugal, you're playing the Campeonato Português. You don't need experience no more. All right, so dude, let him go. We don't need this guy no more. Now we have a chance to go ahead and develop one of our own, whether it's bring back Yuri Ribeiro from loan or bringing up the kid Amaral or even Hermes, whatever. But I just think that at this point, they're like, já deu o que tinha para dar.
Yeah.
And I think that they're okay with moving on. I think they brought him back as a thank you, but now they're like, look, we've done all we do. Peace out.
Look, amigos, negócios à parte, right?
That's what it comes down to.
So that's what it comes down, but that's what it should have came down in the beginning of the season. If there was doubts whether or not, obviously nobody knew that Eliseu was going to hit that wall as quick as he did for this season. So obviously I understand what you're saying, and I'm not going to take anything away from what you said or add anything because
this has been an atrocious season. It's been atrocious. I don't think anyone, even the most the person with the least hopes for this squad, right, didn't expect the season to turn out the way it has. Since it has, they just want to cut all the weight and just move forward. I think that's the direction that they're showing me that they want to head in right now.
The other thing that's also a news item, and this was something that we mentioned last podcast with World Cup happening this summer. There's a lot of guys that obviously want to get playing time, and one of them is Zivkovic, and I think that the Bola was reporting that Zivkovic wants to go out in order to get playing time so he could be considered for the Serbian national team. Dave, what has Zivkovic done for Benfica? Obviously not as much as he did last year.
No, this year he's only appeared in 12 matches, started 6 in total, 3 in the league and 3 in Champions League. Compared to last season where he played 24 matches, was more involved with the team last year and hasn't really gotten much chance this season. Yeah.
Cristiano, biggest, well, I don't know. You guys know how we feel about Zivkovic. I think all of us four feel very strongly about Zivkovic, and we think that if not our best winger, most creative winger, he's definitely second best, but I think that we all share the same opinion that he's perhaps the most creative, most explosive, most talented winger that we have on the squad, yet we don't understand why he's played so little so far. He's now hit halfway of what he hit last season, so he's on pace. Maybe last year he played more consistently, he had more repeats on games that he started than this year, and maybe that's why we're fine, but we don't understand.
No, forget, he missed majority of the first half of the season. He picked up an injury in a scrimmage in preseason, and he missed the first 2-3 months. So it was a slow process to get him involved in the lineup. That's why his numbers by me is as minuscule.
And Steve, here's the other thing, right? So I think that I mentioned this here on a couple podcasts ago where I said that Rui Vitória plays with it. He rotates these guys to keep everyone motivated. Wouldn't it be within his best interest to give a shot to Zivkovic? Because if Zivkovic is motivated to make the Serbian national team, wouldn't it work in Vitória's favor and trying to get the best out of this player when he's motivated enough?
I'd have to agree. We say this almost every week, but I think there's more than meets the eye with the Zivkovic situation. There's a kid who's supremely talented, one of the more talented players on our teams, with, like you've mentioned, without a doubt. But he's never been given a lot of opportunities, and based on what we see on the pitch, it's never been, minus this last game where he got sent off pretty stupidly. But aside from that, he's never been poor. So he's never, for me, merited how little he's played. He's never been bad. So I always, to me, there's something outside of what we see in the 90 minutes that's keeping him off. And we've said this before, and I'm sticking to it. What that is could be a multitude of things. Bad attitude, trains poorly. I don't know. You see the guy, you see his body language. You don't get that impression from him, but there's something more.
Let me ask you something, though, and maybe this is one of the factors that you consider. Do you think that right now Servi gets the edge because Servi is actually better defensively than Zivkovic?
We've had this conversation before. I don't think so. I is that Rui Vitoria's reason? Sure, but if that's the actual reason in the Portuguese league where we should be dominating 90% of the matches, it's a BS reason for me. Look, especially if you have Salvio on the other side who puts in all the work that you need him to do, you should be able to free up your other wing a little bit. I don't agree with it. I'm sorry, I do not. In the Champions League, the match that I went to watch versus CSKA, the only bright times we ever had were with Zivkovic and Grimaldo down the left. The rest of the times were piss poor. So.
And Zivkovic came in against Porto and is probably the most dangerous Benfica had been
for like 6-7 minutes.
But look, you guys talked
outside of the 90 minutes, man.
You guys talked about this in the earlier parts of the pod, which was, if you're playing the 4-3-3 to cover for the back four and yada yada, we hit on all that. But I think a lot of it has to do. Servi gives you those defensive responsibilities that allows a Krovinovic and whoever's playing on the left side of the 4-3-3 a little bit more freedom, whereas Zivkovic is not going to track back. So then it exposes the team on a defensive end a little bit more than with the Zivkovic than it does with a Servi. In my mind, I still don't understand why Servi doesn't get the nod over these guys. But I mean, it's got to be something that we're not seeing, that we're not privy to. But I don't know, man. I mean, at this point, if I'm him, I totally understand wanting to move. I mean, I have no problems with it. And at this point, like, obviously, you guys all know that we all root for the same thing. We want to see the best players on the field for Benfica. But at this point, it's like, if he leaves, you're really going to miss him? He hasn't played much. You know what I mean? Like, he stays, he's not going to play. He leaves, he's not going to play. So what's the difference?
Yeah,
I wish he stays. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. So we'll see how that develops. But I mean, if that's his reason, I think that Vitória should be milking that extra motivation. And then again, if he doesn't plan on playing him, if Gonçalves and Servi are the two guys above him in the pecking order, hey, look, you got to be fair to the guy, right? If you don't count on him every week, you got to be fair to the guy and give him the best chance to get out there. And obviously, he's very young, and I'm sure he'll make more World Cups other than this Russian one if he does miss it. But nonetheless, you got to be fair with a guy that if you don't count on him every week or every other week, you got to be fair. You got to be fair with these guys. Also, in the news, João Felix and Keaton Parks renewed their contracts with Benfica until 2022. Keaton Parks has played 12 matches for Benfica B and has scored 2 goals and 841 minutes under his belt. He has 1 appearance for the senior squad in the Taça de Portugal match. He came in for Pizzi and played 21 minutes. So a good renewal. Obviously, Benfica identifying a player with value and with talent that they could cultivate to be a good player for this A team. João Felix, you guys all know how we feel about João Felix. We were when we were in Portugal in May, we watched one of the B team game April. We watched one of the B team games, and that was the one. It was probably the worst game of the season for the B team. They got beat like 4 or 5-0 by Nacional de Madeira. But the one kid that stood out to us was João Felix, and he kind of had been, I had seen him here and there playing. He's actually the youngest player that Benfica's ever fielded in the Ledman League, or
and
for
there's
the B
also
team.
been 3 Portuguese players to get called up
To the U21?
U21 at 17, and he's the youngest. It's Cristiano Ronaldo, I think Ruben Neves.
Neves?
Ruben Neves and him. He's actually the youngest one to get called up to the national team on the 21s.
David, what has João Felix done for the B team so far this year, or what's he tallied?
Well, he's had 7 starts in the second division for the team. He's posted 2 goals, and he's also played 5 matches in the UEFA Youth League this year for Benfica B.
Yeah, and I know that he had an injury in the beginning of the season, so he kind of sat out for a few games. But this is, I mean, you're talking about an emergent talent, and hopefully his head doesn't get too big. He was a guy that was let go by Porto in his formation and ended up in one of their B teams, Dragon Force or whatever, or Padroense, Dragon Force and Padroense, and Benfica actually went and got him. And this kid has been kind of shattering plateaus, if you will.
I think he's a Tondela kid, bro.
He's from up there. He's from
I think
up north.
He started with them, with the little kids.
Pedinhas, I want to say Pedinhas. I saw his bio, but I don't remember now. So an emergent talent here. Definitely keep his name in your mind. Youngest kid to play for a B team, and youngest one of 3 youngest players to get called for the U21 team at 18, as Cristiano mentioned. So we'll just have to keep an eye on these 2 guys, and they are the future.
Yeah, I mean, they it's definitely something to be excited about. Now you just got to get them to play and actually get some minutes on the A squad.
Keaton Parks were especially excited about Keaton Parks and CJ Santos because of their background as U.S. guys. So obviously there's a little bit of a connection and a bias towards them. Obviously we want to see them do well. And we're hoping that one of these days we could get Keaton Parks on the podcast so we could talk through, have some questions for him. So we'll wait to see if we can make that happen. Lastly, one guy that Benfica was looking at, Nordi Mukiele, a 20-year-old French international currently playing for Montpellier as a right back. And has appeared in 17 matches this season. So probably all the matches for Montpellier. It's still early, but I mean, another right back.
The newspapers already started that Benfica is going to get rid of 32 players, bring in 45. There's going to be new speculation on new players every single day. Benfica now is willing to spend 20 million. Yeah, it's just going to be noise throughout the whole goddamn winter transfer window. Look, let me see these guys up at the podium holding a Benfica shirt. Until then, I don't want to hear it, man. Right now, they're throwing out all this information through their PR to calm everyone, okay? They don't want anyone being upset. They want the people to turn out and show up at the games and buy the tickets and buy the merchandise, because the way that things have gone this season, there shouldn't be a reason for anyone to be out there. They haven't given a reason for no one to come out and watch them play, with the exception of Iwama Camisola. There's no other reason to go watch these clowns play. So they're going to put out all this information to appease all the fans around the world, right? That everything is going to be okay, guys. We're going to spend 20 million because they didn't have it a couple months ago, but now they have it all. Mysteriously, it appeared. Now they have money. They realize that their summer transfer window planning was just total garbage. And now we're going to go out there and invest 20 million. You better be buying a bunch of quality $3 to $4 million players. You need a bunch for 20 million. You need like 7 of them.
Let's just buy 2 good ones for 10 each.
Who are you going to buy now in January that's worth 10 million that would actually be that could, well, I was going to say, stupid of me, that could play in European Cup. We're out of European competition. That aren't cup tied. That's where I was going with that. But yeah, I forgot for a quick second.
Yeah, we'll have more time to discuss plans on Benfica bringing guys. So,
bro, I don't want lottery tickets. This kid from Montpellier, he might be a good player, right? But if he's coming in and to still battle it out with Andre Almeida, thank you very much, but we'll go get you in the summer, all right? We need people that are coming in right now that are stepping in without a doubt will play. There is no, this guy had an off day, he's going to replay. No, we need without a doubt guys that fit into the starting 11 and add to whatever's there and add to whatever's missing at the moment.
Yeah, and we need guys that are going to step in and be starters, period. That's it. We got a couple of questions here from Twitter. Diogo Reis. This season has been tough to watch. Rushing home from work to watch some of these games has been nothing short of a disappointment. Most games. Lack of ideas, not only from players and coaching staff, is unacceptable for this team. There needs to be accountability. So it was more of a statement from Diogo than a question. And look, we've been saying here, I mean, there's got to be some accountability for what went wrong. And I think that we've dissected enough of what went wrong this offseason. So we all know. And look, there can't be excuses, because if the intent was to get the Penta and you didn't prepare well enough, then, obviously there's going to have to be some people that are going to be need to be held accountable for that. So whether it's a president, whether it's Rui Vitória, whether it's the players, whether it's a technical staff, whether it's Benfica Lab, whatever, heads will roll.
Or will they?
Or will not. I think that's all I got. Cristiano, did you have anything else to add? We could talk about anything you want except the Yankees.
Then I got nothing else to talk about.
All right. Steve?
Steve wants to talk about the Yankees.
No, not the
Josh
Yankees.
Donaldson gets traded.
What?
Pat Donald gets traded?
Who?
Nothing. Stick to soccer. Let's go,
Pat
Steve.
Donald Duck?
What's on your mind, Steve?
Rio Ave beats us. Is there consequences? That's what's on my mind.
That's your question?
That's my question.
That's an interesting
I don't want to think about it too hard, but I think.
I don't want to be too negative. I think that we've been negative enough this season already, and there's some guys that that they're a little bit turned off by our negativity. But I mean, if we lose against Rio Ave, and look, that episode, if you remember, that episode where Cristiano's not here and I went on a rant, that Steve was here and I went on a rant. And one of the examples that I used was Rio Ave. The fact that Rio Ave was well organized, well coached, and if we have player for player, we have better players than Rio Ave. Why can't we play like Rio Ave plays in an organized manner? So this was an example I used 3-4 podcasts ago. Tomorrow, we'll get to see it. And look, there was no downfall, no kickbacks, no pedras no shark, whatever it was from our European campaign, as far as the structure and as far as the club. It seems that the way the club came out, it was nothing to them, really, when we said here last week that it was an embarrassment for all of us fans. But the club hasn't really come out and said that, yeah, this is not how we wanted to go, and it was disastrous, and we don't want this to happen again. We have yet to see that from the club. And this is probably, if we end up falling to Rio Ave and be out of the Taça de Portugal, it would just be another brush off by the club, because that carrot named Penta is still out there. So as long as it's still out there, everything is all. You could lose all your games, but as long as you win the Penta, people think that that's going to be the one that cures.
You went around the block to get to where I wanted to get to, which was, you're absolutely right. I think Steve, unfortunately, hopefully that's not the case where they don't lose here. But if they do, it'll be all right. They'll just shrug it off. And, he was brought here for the long term, because by firing him, you're admitting that you are at fault as well, because you've been backing this guy since. I know, well, you're not, but I'm saying if they were to do it right now, they're admitting that they were at fault when everyone's criticized a lot of times, whether they should have or they shouldn't have. It's another topic. But there have been people that have been skeptical about this whole Rui Vitória thing, and they've stood firmly right by his side and said, this is my coach. He's not going anywhere. We're in this together. And all of a sudden, you're going to admit fault by firing him. They're still going to give him the platform. They're going to give him the rest of the year, at least to hang himself, Steve.
He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere, not even next year. Vieira is very clear in what he said. And the thing is, the way that you spin this is that the team was not good enough for Vitória to do what he was supposed to do. When we all know that
But
Vitória
Vitória
is
supposedly is the one who chose this team, according to Luis Felipe Vieira.
but that's how it gets spun, Steve.
I see where you guys are coming, and I probably agree with what you're saying. But if we do, in fact, it's a big if. It's still a big if we have a better team than they do in terms of individual quality. But if we were to lose, I think something has to be said, done. A measure has to be made,
Steve,
or
are you
else there's
asking
going to
for
be.
my opinion, what should be done, or what do I think
No,
will be done?
he
Because
feels
those are
that-
two
No,
different things.
I'm thinking both. What should be done if that's the case, and what will be done. I'm not saying Rui Vitória is going to get sacked, which it would. I agree with you. It's given what has been said in the past, it doesn't sound very likely. But I think at this point, if that were to happen, somebody's got to step out and speak to the media. Someone's got to address the fans. Someone's got to say, "Listen."
There you go.
What will that change, though,
Something.
Steve? Steve, let's say
Nothing.
let's just say
No-
they lose, right? And then in Rui Costa or Felipe, playing our camera, they come out and they speak. What will that change?
Not
the team's
much,
going to be
but
changing different next week.
at least there will be a showing of face, which I have not seen yet, like Alfredo said. So
No, there's not have been a clear show of face. Não vem ninguém dar o corpo às balas.
Yeah.
Nobody has really stepped out and said
not Rui Vitória.
the disastrous
Not-
Europe.
There
not
has
any of
been
them.
no pressure by the fans, by no one outside the club. There's
There
been
was
no
one anchor,
pressure at all.
wasn't there?
A couple, because you know what? Because of that, like you said, the penta, the carrot is still out there. You know what? And they're gonna tell you, well, yeah, we were terrible in Champions League, but we can't compete with Barcelona, Real Madrid, PSG. You weren't even in their group. But that's what they're gonna tell you. Realistically, we had no shot at winning it. Right? Now, if they lose at Taça Portugal, they get knocked out. Okay, that's now, like Steve says, it's a much bigger argument. It's a much bigger argument, but they're going to turn around and say, oh, you know what? Our goal from the beginning of the season, when we stepped foot, day number one in training camp, was to win the Penta, to do something historically that we have never done. Only one club's done it in the Portuguese league, right? And that's what they're going to stick with.
The thing is that a lot of people are going to hold on to those torches and pitchforks until we're out of the Penta. So everything that's
they
going
have a
to
right to do so as well.
Regardless of whether you play like crap and you barely defeat these teams that are in last place, you lose the Taça de Portugal, you lose the Taça de Liga. As long as that Penta is still out there, people are gonna sit still because that's what Vitória has done in the past couple of years.
But the question should be, right? The question should be, how long are you willing to wait? Are you willing to sacrifice the chance at an historic event for this club that's never come? Are you willing to sacrifice and to give it away, to blow away the Penta, just because you're trying to make a statement in supporting your manager?
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's my turn.
It's a difficult ask too to ask a guy to come in mid-season and
I'm just
expect
asking
to
a
win.
question.
Firing Rio Vitória is
question.
not gonna mean we're gonna win the Penta.
It doesn't mean, but what has everyone? You just read an email, a tweet. What has everyone been complaining about? Steve and I've been complaining about this for 3 seasons now. There is no creativity, lack of ideas. Maybe if there's a guy that comes in with an idea, maybe just changes things around. Maybe. That's all I'm saying.
It'll still take time for him to implement this idea, et cetera, et cetera. Dude, I just, it's something that's on my mind. If we were to lose, what happens? Does somebody finally say something? Does something finally get done?
I don't think we're going to lose.
Hey, I
don't think we're going to lose. But
all I want.
I'm not convinced we're going to either, but I'm just, a thought in the back of my mind.
A couple more things before we go. And all I really want, look, aside from Benfica winning the Penta, I just want some of the people who have remained very positive throughout this whole process, and I was one of them at one point. I try to stay positive as much as possible. I just want the guys that are out there right now, they're holding on hope and feel that we can win the Penta. If that doesn't come through, I just want to make sure that you guys all recognize that. I don't need anyone to address me directly and say, hey, you guys were right. But if that does happen, I expect somebody, all of you, to step out and do mea culpa. And by the same token, if Benfica does get the Penta, we have no problems here eating crow. And Cristiano loves the crow.
I do, but I don't want to eat
Guisado de crow.
I don't want to eat crow this year. I want these guys to turn this around, man. I want
No, we
to
do.
get that Penta, man. I want this team to.
I'm not rooting against this team.
Yeah, I will never root against Benfica.
But we're identifying problems that could be very well be our downfall and us not achieving the Penta. And we've exposed them here.
3 years running, or
We'll see what
on a
happens.
third year running.
Let's hope they stick to what the garbage
Yeah.
that they're spewing, that they're going to spend 20 million and
Look.
yada yada. Let's hope that they stick to that. And if they go out, I mean, look, this team for the Portuguese Campeonato is a few players, 2 players away from really plugging all the holes in that we've talked about here on the pod throughout most of the season. They could turn things around. They just need to be smart and bring in some quality players, and hopefully these guys pick it up, man.
Need to be smart, and Rui Vitória needs to pick the right guys. That's one step. Anyway, Steve, you want to add anything else?
I'm good.
David?
I'm good.
Good job on the stats, Dave. Cristiano, you said you weren't going to say anything.
2 weeks in
Today.
a row.
It's every week, Dave. You're still just new around here. That's all.
Thanks very much for checking us out. You can find Cristiano on Twitter at 10CO10, Steve Santos at Steve Santos6, at Benfica Podcast is benficapodcast.com, planetbenfica.co.uk. You know where you can find us. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening, and thanks a lot for putting up with us. I know that there's a division right now between Benfica fans and guys that still believe that we could do this based on what has been done in the past couple of years, and then guys like us that were a little skeptical because of writing on the wall that we're seeing. And that's exactly it. There's writing on the wall.
And as most of you have heard, because I couldn't go out without saying anything. As most of you have heard, Benfica is starting a women's soccer team. So all you gals out there that have always dreamt about wearing a Benfica shirt and actually playing in a Benfica shirt, playing Style de Luz, here's your opportunity. Knock yourselves out. And they've also announced that they're starting up a Radio FM. So if you guys love us so much, and love our critique,
well,
send the clip of the good stuff and when we praise them. Don't send them the negative stuff because they won't return our calls. So only the positive stuff. Send them a clip and see what they say.
Well, yeah, Cristiano asked me about that, and
Let's
all
go.
I said is that we were not good for Benfica because we tell it like it is. So, and you need to have positivity and
We're positive. Steve's very positive.
Oh yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Extremely positive.
Next week, we'll be back. We'll break down the Tondela game. We'll look forward to Benfica's next game.
And the Rio Ave.
That's right. We'll break down the Rio Ave also.
Steve's stuck on that Rio Ave game, boy.
See you, everybody.